Hi everybody, welcome to another Chats with Chaudhry. I hope you're safe and well. Today I'm continuing my Reflections and Forecast series where I sit down with senior executives across life science, pharma and biopharma to get their views in the last 12 months and also, more importantly, get their predictions for the coming year. And today I'm delighted to be joined by VP for Marketing and Consulting Services at CAI, David Shenberger, and Chief Strategy Officer, Alice Redmond. So, David, Alice, it's lovely to see you both. I know you just come back from Madrid, so you're very tired, but you're looking well, I have to say.
Thank you very much, Rizwan. Lovely to be with you today.
It's lovely to see you both.
Thanks,
now,
great to see you.
It's great to see you too, David. I mean, the first question I'm going to ask you is a very simple one. For people not familiar with CAI, would one of you please give me a quick overview of the business and what you actually do?
Absolutely. Rizwan, CAI is an engineering and quality consulting company focused on helping our clients achieve speed to patient. So we do that through an operational readiness approach that integrates solutions across all their work streams. We have offices in the US, Canada, Australia, Netherlands, UK, Switzerland, India, Ireland, Italy, China, and Singapore. And we're really about delivering to a higher standard when our clients need it.
Brilliant. Alice, would you like to add anything to that, or has David covered it succinctly for you?
David, as always, has covered it very well, but I'd add one comment. We work across the complete life cycle, and we will cover everything from quality, compliance and regulatory, commissioning, qualification, everything that comes together to form the operationally ready facility that you need. And I think that's something that is really important, that we can see and put the whole jigsaw together for a client.
Brilliant. Now, first question related to 2022, and I'll check this out to you, Alice, if you don't mind, first of all, is describe 2022 in one word and why.
I'm going to cheat and go two words, okay? I think disruptive is a word I use because of the economic issues, the political, geopolitical issues that were going on. From a more centered perspective from our clients and from the pharma industry, the supply chain caused huge disruption. Our clients have had to pivot and manage this, and we've had to pivot and manage it.
Right, okay. And what about you, David? What word would you describe 22 and why?
I was going to go with chaotic, and for many of the same reasons. You just never seem to know what was coming around the corner, from supply chain to inflation to geopolitical concerns. We were constantly having to be agile, flex our business and react and improvise but still deliver for our clients in many cases in urgent needs to get products to patient.
Right, okay. And looking back on 2022, I mean, obviously, a lot of companies have sort of changed dramatically since the pandemic. So what were some of the key achievements from a CAI perspective last year? I mean, Dave, would you like to start on that?
Yeah, I have one, and I think it's the growing realization from our clients that all their operations and departments need to be connected and integrated. And we've been able to get a lot of traction leading those workshops that line out everything that needs to happen from the pre-design and kickoff of a project through not just the turnover of the project at the end, but to real operational readiness and getting the medicines delivered. So I think that realization of, hey, we need to look at this holistically and helping drive that in the industry is one of our big achievements for the year.
Right. And Alice, anything to add to that?
I couldn't have put it any better. And I think us adding, I suppose, the digital element to that has been very important from our perspective, because we're adding efficient digital tools to help us. And Neat been one of those examples whereby we're looking at effectively shortening the life cycle, but looking at it from the very beginning to the very end. And I think this is really important to help our clients get patients to get drugs to patients quicker.
Right. And one question I'm going to ask you is aside, which we didn't speak about before, I'm going to ask you is that, have you found that clients' expectations have changed since the pandemic, though? Because obviously pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, everything took a long time. People expected certain lead times. Since the pandemic, and because of the vaccine generation, people's expectations, have they changed now from your perspective, from customer perspective, in terms of what they expect from you?
I think our clients are under more pressure than they've ever been before. They have to do more with less. And we're hopefully always there to help them. So I think that's one of the big changes. So if anything, I see, again, during the pandemic, there was a lot of capital investment. Companies didn't think about, so much about the budget for, they just had to go do it. And the realization post-pandemic is there's a lot of pressure on the portfolio of products and the assets as to what they're going to be used for. And they don't have as much money to spend. And that's difficult, It's difficult for them, and it's definitely difficult for us.
And David, anything to add to that?
I would just add that I think there's also a realization that you can't run your teams and your people at flat out continuously, and that you have to make some exceptions for an understanding of people's limitations and not burn out your teams. You can do that for a pandemic, for an urgent need for a whole population, but I think understanding what the limits of your teams are and being able to manage that effectively is a key, something that's going to need to be understood fully in the coming years.
That's a very fair point, David. I think the human aspect, it gets lost in a lot of this, doesn't it, in terms of just hitting targets and so on. Now, looking back at 2022 from an industry perspective, obviously because you have got a wide range of clients that you're helping across the board, what challenges have you seen the sector face, and what developments have really stood out for you?
Okay, challenges. I think, I suppose drug shortages has been a huge challenge, and I think it's something the whole industry are trying to come together and look at better. Okay, we have European initiatives, US initiatives, EMA working with McKinsey on various different initiatives on this. So whereby we're looking at what are the reasons for these drug shortages. And part of that would be the supply chain issues associated with single-use components, the supply chain issues associated with raw materials and all of these things. And I think this brings home to the holistic model we've been talking about earlier on in this discussion, whereby I think before things happened, and if there was a little bit of a delay, it didn't matter so much, whilst when things happen, things have happened through 22 and the pandemic, supply chain shortages have been real, and when you don't have the materials to make the products, you just can't make the products. And this knock-on effect is multiple drug shortages, whether it's antibiotics, chemotherapeutic drugs, diabetic medication. It's huge. So bringing it back to what we've seen as a difference is when you can look at this drug shortage from the business continuity planning, from the operational readiness perspective, and how breaking down the silos between each of the areas of the supply chain. I think that is a remedy that we could see out there. One of the things I think that happened during the pandemic was there was greater regulatory collaboration with the industry, and I see a real change in 22 with the amount of regulators getting involved in professional societies and getting involved and wanting to write white papers and wanting to be on panels. And this would include topics like Pharma 4.0, AI, the update to Annex 1, the update to ICHQ 9, update to Annex 11, much better collaboration. And I think that's something that happened in COVID and is here to stay, which is great.
Brilliant. And David, what about you? What do you see as the challenges for the sector?
Yeah, I think there's going to be an increased focus, and you can see the challenges already with cost containment and managing the cost of goods. And how do we implement digital transformation to realize some of those cost savings? There was huge realization that implementation of digital transformation and Pharma 4.0 can be challenging if not done correctly. But the promise of those items are just so great that it really is a driver for cost containment, cost control in the future. And I think that figuring out how to implement those improvements, as Alice was saying, in a timely manner and with that reasonable cost is going to be a next big challenge and something that we need to overcome.
Right. Okay. And one thing I did want to ask you was that obviously we've seen the growth of ATMPs over the last 18 months or maybe 2 years now, and they are really obviously such a hot topic. So again, from your interactions with your customers, does that change how you work with them or what they need from you now, or is it still pretty much the same model but you can fit it to people who are looking to develop ATMPs?
I think our model fits ATMPs and each of the other modalities, to be honest. But I think so from the ATMP perspective, because it's on a smaller scale, I think the application of the operational readiness model is actually easier, to be honest. And many of these ATMPs are coming out of universities, coming out of development groups, right, and maybe being purchased, a company, a bigger company, purchasing a smaller company. I think the ability to be able to influence in those smaller startup biotech is much, much greater. And that's where we see, the medicines of today and the medicines of tomorrow coming from,
Sure. David, anything to add to that?
I would just say from our business standpoint that we are comfortable with and realize that we're going to constantly have to change and adapt as the market changes and as regulations change, as our competition changes, and our clients, as they learn things, they're going to need different services from us. So that's one of the things we're highly aware of in our strategy planning, is the need to see around the corner and figure out what's coming next.
Right. Okay. And my final question related to 2022 is really, are there any areas you think the industry could have improved upon in 2022?
From my perspective, I think there's been greater collaboration, both within companies from the perspectives of different functions and between companies. But if you think of the power of what happened during the pandemic, I think we're only still tipping the iceberg now. So I think obviously the competitive level of collaboration is stymies it somewhat, so to speak. But I think going forward that we'll be in a position whereby we'll see greater engagement of the industry with regulators. We'll see greater engagement of the industry with vendors and with equipment suppliers to optimize and to be able to work more efficiently.
Right. And David, from your perspective?
Yeah, I think there's a realization that real business continuity and supply chain robustness planning has to happen. I think in the past there was a lot of discussion of it and thinking that we had talked through many of those things, but I think the idea that now we have to get serious about business continuity planning is something that we need to improve on.
Right. All right. Thank you for that, David and Alice. Right. So let's look ahead to 2023. So big picture, what are your predictions for life science, pharma and biopharma for 2023? Alice, do you want to kick us off on that?
Yeah, I will. I think there's going to be a really strong focus on, portfolio investment, but actually in a much more focused way. So maybe a client that had a budget of, a nice budget of, say, 5 billion a few years ago will have a much smaller budget now. So we see our clients are consolidating their assets and looking to see across their, not just one site, but globally what their network is. And we're seeing this with some of the big mergers that are happening now. So if you take the merger or the acquisition of Horizon from Amgen and others, that's a lot of what's going on there. There's also consolidation of pipelines, because there's many of the larger companies whose pipelines in certain areas, they are looking at that, and they're actually acquiring to be able to expand those pipelines. And again, I see there's going to be a very strong focus on biosimilars and biobetters. Right. We've already spoken about ATMPs. This is only the tip of the iceberg. We're seeing the benefit now, both from a diagnosis perspective of the whole genome project and the amount of availability of data now to be able to sequence out particular gene types for the purposes of gene and cell therapies. With now, they're saying like upwards to 500 childhood illnesses and between 270, I think, and 350, depending on what paper you read, of adult illnesses now that can be literally sequenced, and you have a gene sequence for that within days, where before that would take years. So I think that is coming, and I think the modalities of interest that are I suppose that are reaching the clinic, we're now in a position whereby the regulatory framework around them is more robust, and that's helping, because regulatory framework has only been really developed around ATMPs. And I suppose I would be remiss not to mention AI and Pharma 4.0. I suppose the release of ChatGPT in November has everybody chatting and talking, and we ourselves have obviously been playing with that. But from the AI perspective, we see this as in some cases the now, but most definitely the future from a pharma perspective. Regulators are nervous, some more than others. We have a number, there's an FDA white paper, as there is one from EMA in this space. And I think we badly need to get some industry standard documents out there to be able to guide this in a very practical way, that we can not go over the top with this from a validation perspective. We keep it aligned to what the industry needs and what will produce a quality product. And then Pharma 4.0, you know, we've been talking about this for a long time, but I think we're starting to really realize it now. The number of companies running projects with that are, say, a full facility on the principles and platforms from a Pharma 4.0 is at a recent conference was 11 companies out of 300 were after deploying projects completely in this space. There's over 70 companies in pilot at the moment, and there's about 80% of the remainder of those companies actually ready to start. So we're now seeing a need to see the industry come together and from a collaboration perspective, and again, figure out how Pharma 4.0 will be, I suppose, will be reviewed from a regulatory perspective, but actually maximizing the implementation of it.
Brilliant, thank you. And David, anything to add to that in terms of your thoughts in terms of 2023?
Yeah, I bring a little bit of a US-centric approach to that, and because I think it's going to have a worldwide impact, is the new law around pricing and price bidding that's coming out of for pharmaceutical products. And you're already seeing companies trying to understand the impact of that on their bottom line and adjusting how they're doing clinical trials, how they're setting their pricing models, and what other indications they're going to bring to market, whether they're going to bring these drugs to market as a one indication drug and not do the additional follow-on work in some cases. And I think seeing how that settles out is going to be an interesting seat on the sidelines to watch as 2023 progresses.
Right. Now, let's delve a little bit more specifically in terms of pharma manufacturing. We touched on it a little bit with ATMPS, but what do you see in terms of developments and trends around pharmaceutical manufacturing or biopharma manufacturing, if you want as well, not just pharma, but biopharma as well?
So, you know, I think a big part of that is the continuing emphasis on outsourcing with CDMOs and CMOs, and how those companies respond and react and optimize their networks to support both the growing ATMPs as well as outsourcing from legacy pharma and biotech. And a big part of that, as Alice mentioned, is Pharma 4.0 and digital transformation, and how they're able to implement that in a cost-effective way to match their lower margins, but at the same time get those increased efficiencies.
Brilliant. Right, and let's talk about CAI specifically for 2023. So what can we expect? Well, what can you share with us? I appreciate it's early on in the year and there's some things you don't want to share with everybody right now, but what can you share with us and what can we expect from CAI in 2023?
Oh, I think we can share. Like, we are passionate about the power of doing an operational readiness assessment very early on in a project, and the ability to break down silos, the ability to have a level one schedule that you develop very early on, and you bring the teams together that allow, from a human performance perspective, to have the right people, like the operators, technicians, learning the process as you go, such that when you get into that wonderful phase of OQ complete, PQ complete, that you don't have 8-9 months waiting to get into your PPQ batches. And I think this is something that I think, from our perspective, we're really passionate about, is furthering our deployment of that model. We currently run that model of a series of assessments. We'll be automating that model in 2023, which we're super excited about. Equivalently, we're building out that model into NEAT, so that's something we're really looking forward to be able to do. And again, we've been on a digital journey ourselves within CAI, both for internal tools like our PSA system, but actually also tools that we work with our clients on in terms of optimization, like providing instances of things like NEAT or CMMS systems, such that we can help a client who needs something fast, rather than going through the procurement and the management of those, that we have our own instance that's validated, okay, on our own quality system. And rather than 6 to 9 months, we can provide it in 4 to 6 weeks. And this is again is something hugely from good from an efficiency perspective. So no doubt I forgot something that David can add.
Over to you, David. Anything else that we can expect from CAI?
I would say that I would expect us to see a renewed emphasis on our contributions to helping drive industry forward to more efficient, more practiced performance, and be that involvement through professional societies, participation in panels, and supporting our clients as they work through professional societies. I think you'll see us very active in contributing to industry.
Yeah, I'll just add one other comment on that, and I should have mentioned it. Look, we're proud of the inputs we have. Professional societies, we're proud that we can work together with some of the best in the world, and to drive things forward. And as I said, we saw huge advances in 22, and I expect even more in 23.
Brilliant. Well, I was going to ask you for your last thoughts, and that was almost your last thought, the way you said that, Alice, but I'm going to ask first David, and maybe you want to add something else in terms of what are your last thoughts for the viewers to leave them with for 2023? David, for you first.
I think we all just need to buckle our seatbelts and hang on, because things, I don't see the roller coaster slowing down.
Right.
So we need to be agile.
Alice, anything to add with your last
one? They were pretty much exactly what I was going to say, but I think there's going to be unpredictability, but I think the industry has gotten very good at pivoting. We proved that in and through COVID. So I think the industry needs to rely on itself plus collaboration, and I think a lot can be done with that. And economically and geopolitically, we just have to ride those waves as they come.
Brilliant. Well said. Thank you both very much for your time today. I really love doing this series because I get to talk to people like you and learn about lots of different things I didn't know about. So I really appreciate that time out, sharing your knowledge, your expertise, and your thoughts, both on last year and this year as well. And I wish you and CAI and everybody at CAI a fantastic 2023. So thank you very much for taking time out. Viewers, you've heard what David and Alice had to say. If you've got any comments based on what they talked about today, then feel free to put them in the comments below the video. And if you'd like to know more about CAI, then first of all, you can check out their website. The link will be above the video. But also, as Alice and David alluded to near the end, they work with a lot of different events and associations and speak at a lot of events as well. So you will be able to meet CAI at a number of different events throughout the year, both in Europe and North America and other parts of the world, I should say as well, but I only focus on Europe and North America, so I don't try and think about the rest of the world, but you'll meet them all over the world at some point or another throughout 2023. So all that's once again, David, Alice, thank you very much. It was lovely to see you both. Thank you for taking the time out to talk to me today.
Thank you very much.
And viewers, thank you for watching as always, and until next time, stay well and stay safe. Bye-bye.